Truth be told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every lion has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit.
Crossroads, life's tolls, life goes. I gotta win. W my lockdown. You can't rewind.
All right, so we are live here on my StreamYard, in my StreamYard studio, which is going live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. So let me make sure comments are turned on. This is Heart Centered Fridays with your girl Sonia, and oh, this is big. So I have the StreamYard link on here for anybody that wants to come in and ask questions at the end. So that's what this link is for, but it's looking all huge in my face. But I'm actually going to hide it for now while I give this class. So, all right. So today we are talking about relationship intelligence, boundaries plus attachment styles, why high value love requires both. So this is basically, it's not dating advice, it's not masculine versus feminine arguments, but basically the capacity to hold boundaries while staying securely attached. Most of us don't have secure attachment because of the way that we grew up. And so this is just something I feel like a lot of us out there need to learn. And it's taken me 39 years, almost 40 years to learn this myself. So it's just some knowledge I feel like it can help people out there, and definitely trying to get it out there for some of you guys. So most people think that boundaries actually push love away, which is, I didn't even know about boundaries for the longest time. In reality, boundaries actually reveal attachment patterns. So I'm going to pause for a minute and let that land. So what relationship intelligence actually is knowing where you end and another person begins, because we're all made of energy. I've already mentioned that before, and how we're all made of masculine and feminine energy. And some of us are more sensitive to energy than others, and we tend to take on other people's energy without realizing it. So the key is to learn where your energy begins and where someone else's energy begins. Like, are you taking on somebody else's energy, or is it actually yours? And then basically being able to stay regulated when someone doesn't choose you, because we've all seen those people that react from wounds, where if you turn them down, they take the rejection harshly, where they're just like, oh, well, F you then, or, something crazy. And the key is to be able to stay regulated, which is healthy. So anybody that's reacting out of wounds is not in a healthy attachment style. And I've even had to look at my own attachment styles and realize where I was reacting off of wounds, from childhood wounds. So basically not outsourcing your worth to pursue, not for attention or validation. And that was something that I had to learn about myself as well, because for the longest time, it was looking for the validation. Even though I was so successful in the Marine Corps, and I was bodybuilding and doing all these things, as you saw in the intro video, it was like deep down, I needed that attention. I needed that, oh, you're a badass, like all the people that used to call me Wonder Woman, or all the attention I did get from it, felt good. So that pushed me even harder. But that's not a healthy reason to do things. So basically, I got my notes here too. So it's not cutting people off to feel powerful or over explaining to feel safe, or choosing to avoid or chasing to avoid abandonment. So intelligence is basically discernment plus regulation. And a lot of us aren't regulated. We're dysregulated because we've never been taught how to regulate our own nervous system. That's something I had to learn and do myself, basically, like learn in real time as I'm regulating my nervous system. And it's helping our body to feel safe, because at the end of the day, we all have our masculine and feminine energies, and it's up to us to make ourselves feel safe enough to be in that healthy middle ground, to allow our masculine and feminine energies to be balanced within us. And so boundaries without attachment awareness creates distance. So this is where people get it wrong. A boundary without secure attachment sounds like I don't need anyone. And trust me, I've been in these stages where it was a wounded feminine. And I was like, I don't need anyone. Like, I'll just be alone and I don't care. That's all coming from being wounded. So if they are basically saying, this is also what it could sound like, if they wanted to, they would, or I'm done explaining myself. So that's not sovereignty. That's basically protective detachment. So when you're creating your own defense mechanism from being hurt, and your brain is just doing that to try and keep you safe, basically. But the key is to become aware of it and be able to tell ourselves that, hey, like, okay, I still want to be able to have a healthy attachment I want connection with somebody, but I don't want it to be unhealthy. So let me stay open, but aware and more discerning. So basically, healthy boundaries sound like, okay, so I know my worth and I'm available for mutual connection. I don't chase, but I'm open to being chosen. I don't abandon myself and I don't harden my heart at the same time. So there were so many patterns I had where I would actually abandon myself for the connection, because especially with my ex, I had never had somebody treat me as good as he treated me in the beginning. And so I was like clinging to it. Like I was afraid of I had a fear of abandonment. So I basically had these patterns, and that's why I put up with things that I shouldn't have. Like, I was abandoning myself through that. But the thing is, my body never learned that I can have connection and still have sovereignty. Like, I had always been, it's just the way I was raised. So it's hard to explain right now, but what I've been able to do recently is learn my patterns, like know my worth, but also stay open. And so that's basically being able to set the boundary with grace. So boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. So attachment without boundaries creates entanglement. And we've talked about quantum entanglement before, where you're basically entangled with somebody's energy, but it's not a healthy type of entanglement. So basically it looks like attachment without boundaries looks like overgiving, emotional labor without reciprocity, staying because you empathize with someone's wounds. And I've done that in the past too, where, I understood and I felt bad for somebody else's childhood wounds. and then you're staying in those situations even though it's not healthy. So confusing chemistry confusing chemistry with compatibility. And so that's the thing, there's a lot of people out there that we can have chemistry with, but do we have true compatibility with them? Like there's in this dating phase that I've had this whole year, there's a lot of people I've had good conversations with, good chemistry, but I made sure to stay in my feminine energy, which was something I never did before.
Look at the white door.
And I was always wondering why the polarity was off. But now that I understand polarity better, and my son likes to jump in on the lives. So but yeah, now that I know polarity better and masculine and feminine energy, masculine energy is supposed to keep the polarity intact. Masculine energy, the men are supposed to pursue what they value, but not from an unhealthy standpoint. If you're chasing from wounds, that's different than actually having a healthy pursuit. You're able to let a person have their space, but also build the polarity and build the connection slowly. Anything that's coming that's like building too quickly is from wounds. And I've realized this through my own experience of, everything that builds too quickly, you ignore red flags, there's things that you don't even know what you want, and then you start realizing it along the way, like, okay, this is not what I want, or like certain things that you don't want and do want. So it's important to know what you do want and believe that it's out there, because it is. There's infinite possibilities. So there's never a time that we should think, which I used to be this way. All right. So my son pulled out the cord and it deleted or basically powered down my computer. But it looks like it's still going. All right. So what I was saying. So basically, attachment without boundaries looks like overgiving, emotional labor without reciprocity, staying because you empathize with someone's wounds, confusing chemistry with compatibility. And so it's okay to not be compatible with someone. You might like them, but if you're not compatible, it's okay to be like, look, this isn't aligned for me. And it shouldn't be like a wounding to it. It shouldn't be like I don't like, people shouldn't take it personal. And I've been there and done it where I took it personal and felt wounded by it. And I did that for a lot of my dating, my adult life. And the key is to basically get to a point where you're unattached emotionally and just allowing the connection to build over time, because it's that unattachment that creates the polarity in the dynamic. And when people wonder why you're in a relationship and it's not really working out, it's usually because the polarity has been off for one reason or another. It could be a lot of different things. So this is where people get stuck in trauma bonding, fixer dynamics. If I just explain better, they'll get it. But a lot of the times you can sit there and argue back and forth with a person and continue to try and argue your point, but they're never going to comprehend it because everyone is looking from the lens of their own wounds. And if you're just arguing back and forth, like you're never really gonna get anywhere. And what I realized is I've been able to actually stop mid-argument and realize when I was projecting, basically arguing off of a wound that I had. And then when I was able to pause and see that that was my wound, I was able to see that he was projecting from his wound. And so that's when you see clarity, when you actually pause and ask yourself, like, am I projecting from a wound? And it's like, yeah, okay, I was projecting from a wound. So let me just calm down and see what's really going on here. Then I see that he's projecting from a wound, and I'm able to understand and actually be calm the rest of the conversation. And he's like, oh, the energy shifted. So it starts to actually bring them down when you stay calm and you're coming from a healthy place. But that's where it gets to a point where the more you get to know somebody, you see if that dynamic can get better, if they stay in the present moment, or if they start to project. And if it starts to become a habit that they're projecting onto you and you're growing out of that, then to me, that's a dynamic to not even stay in. It's to basically just let that go, because there will always be somebody better. And that's what I've had to tell myself, because since there's infinite possibilities out there, the person that you want, if you've written down all the qualities you want in a person, is out there. And you basically have to hold those boundaries until that person comes. And I've literally been seeing better quality men coming into my life. And I see that it's getting better and better the more that I stick to the boundaries. Mom! Hey, relax.
Mom. Mom.
Yes. I'm talking on the computer, baby.
My tablet died.
Your tablet died?
You did that?
Oh no.
You did that?
Here, you want to watch mommy phone for a second? Yeah. Just while I finish this.
On the beer.
Just while I finish this, okay?
I want the beer.
I'm gonna put on some YouTube for him until I finish this. Okay, here you go.
No.
But yeah, so where was I at? Oh yeah, so that's not love. That's nervous system survival. We basically learned how to survive certain dynamics if we grew up in a dysfunctional household. And so that's why we attract the same dysfunction later on in life. And we don't really realize until something big hits us and we're like, okay, at least that's what happened with me. Like, now I really need to look at myself and figure out what in me is attracting this dynamic, and taking full self-responsibility, basically. Because once you take full self-responsibility, you start to, like, I don't even argue. I'm to the point where I don't even argue with somebody. They can sit there and try and label me and say all these different things, but I'm not going to argue back, because now I know my worth and I know what I'm looking for. So it's just easy for me to be like, well, I stayed unattached and I had fun in the situation, but in staying unattached, I'm able to just move on to the next, because it's actually exciting for me, because the closer and closer I get, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is interesting, because I'm able to learn through every interaction. And so the intersection of secure attachment and sovereign boundaries, this is the sweet spot, because a securely attached, boundaried person doesn't chase, doesn't punish, doesn't project. You don't project your wounds onto others, doesn't need to convince anyone of their worth. They allow actions to reveal capacity when somebody feels threatened by your boundaries. It doesn't mean that you're too much for having boundaries. It means your nervous system's safety is basically not compatible with theirs right now. Like, I realized recently that, I've regulated my nervous system to a point where now I can move on from a situation, and they might be like, well, I've never seen anyone do that before. But it's because I just stayed unattached throughout the whole thing. And I basically, and it's not like it was that long. I could be talking for a couple months and realize, okay, our dynamic isn't going to work because they're still in their wounds for certain things. And I'm not saying I'm not wounded still, like I still have things I'm working on, but I've outgrown that specific dynamic and I'm attracting better now. So, projection is not feedback. This is important, because when you stop over functioning, some people will label you, they'll misinterpret you, they'll project their wounds onto you. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that your boundary interrupted their access to you. And that's where, to me, a lot of women allow too much access too early. And that's something that I've done. And even in this past situation, I allowed a certain amount of access too soon. But as soon as I realized, I actually set the boundary. And at first, he was more magnetized to me because of it. But then when I set an even harder boundary, that was when I saw the real truth come out. And so it was like, oh, okay, so you want to be able to have all this access, but not have the title of a relationship. No. We're not doing that no more here. So, and this is something that I gotta tell the ladies, because a lot of ladies do this. Like, I'm telling you, I had to learn it what is it? What am I trying to say? Like, as I'm talking to this dude, I'm learning where I had a certain pattern of allowing too much access before they even earned it. And that's the thing, the feminine energy, we are the actual prize. And everyone right now is in such a imbalance, because you got men acting feminine, wanting to be chased. And then you have women in their masculine chasing men. And the polarity is always it's like that. Masculine is supposed to pursue what they value, but it's supposed to be in a healthy way. It's not supposed to be this thirsty type of chase. It's supposed to be a healthy pursuit. Like, let me court you, but let days pass and it be okay to not be talking to each other. And that was another wound I had to look at too, because I had this wound anytime I was talking to a guy and I liked him and he wasn't messaging me that much, like, I was taking it personal, and I was like, well, why isn't he messaging me? That there's that fear of abandonment. But I actually worked on my own wound to the point where I became more sovereign. I was doing my own thing. I didn't care when he was messaging me. but that started putting him in a weird, and that's how you can tell when somebody is wounded or in their wounded masculine or in their healthy masculine is when you start being okay with the space in between, and then they're reaching out a couple days later like, oh, I haven't heard from you. When it's like, okay, I've just been doing my own thing and allowing myself to be in feminine receptivity, because that's when we are the most magnetic as women, when we lean back into our feminine receptivity and we don't pursue, we become the most magnetic to everything. And I've had to learn this the hard way too, because I was always in my masculine, always in that hustle mode. I gotta go chase everything. But as soon as I learned how to really be in my feminine receptivity, I started seeing all the things, all the opportunities magnetizing to me by just staying in the receptive mode. So, all right. So, yeah. So, secure people respond with curiosity. Wounded people respond with defense. So as soon as you set a boundary and they respond in a defensive way, it's coming from a wound. If they're healthy, if they're in their healthy masculine, they're going to basically respond with curiosity and be like, oh, okay, that's different. So here's the integration phase. Basically, place one hand on your heart and one on your belly, because this is just a part of nervous system. Talking to your body is how you create safety in your own nervous system, basically. So I always place a hand on my heart, on my belly, and I have to say these certain things to myself, but this is the thing that I would say here. So I'm allowed to hold boundaries and stay open to love. I don't have to choose, or I don't have to chase to be chosen. And this is for my women out there too, and men too, to be honest, because a man shouldn't be chasing from their wounds. They should be in a healthy pursuit. If they find a woman that they value, they should be in a healthy pursuit of this woman, not necessarily chasing because they're like thirsty, because that's from a wound. So misalignment, here's another one. Misalignment is clarity, not abandonment. So if somebody is not aligned with me, that's just more clarity for me that this is not the right person for me. It doesn't mean you should never have that fear of abandonment anymore. And for some reason, I've had that fear of abandonment my whole life up until I decided to leave my ex, and then it literally never came back. So I think that was just like my awakening moment where it just left my body. So, all right. So I'm just going to say this closing statement, and then I'm going to open up the floor for questions or whatever. I do have somebody in my waiting room that's going to come on, and we can have like a dialogue and whatnot. So relationship intelligence isn't about winning or proving worth. It's about choosing dynamics that meet you where you're at. Without shrinking, without having to shrink yourself, without having to chase, or without having to harden yourself. The right relationships don't require you to abandon yourself. And if they do, then it's not the right relationship. So let me open this up. Let's see. Add to the stage. You ready, Savannah? To be added to the stage?
Let's do it. Hello.
Hey. So
All
Savannah
right.
is actually one of my former poolies that I recruited into the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for having me. Okay, yeah.
But yeah,
So I guess
what do you think?
question.
What do you
Oh, I had some questions. I liked it overall. It was really good. Yeah, I guess I was curious on like you said confusing chemistry with compatibility. Could you maybe outline like what that would look like what the differences of, or like how someone could discern that? Yeah.
So chemistry, you can have chemistry with a lot of different people. Like you can have good conversations, but does it align with what you want in a person? So
Mhm.
this is where it takes getting to know what it is that you want in a person. Um, and that's where compatibility comes in. So when you're more compatible with a person, you basically have, you have the things in common that you want, but then you also have to be at a place where you're both able to communicate with each other.
I see.
And so that takes being healed to a certain extent. Like to me, relationships are actually supposed to be from a healed place versus like most people are getting together through the lens of their wounds, out of like not wanting to be alone, all these different reasons why people get together and are married or married a couple different times and get divorced a couple different times.
Mhm.
So did that answer your question,
Um,
or do you want more insight?
so more so like how could someone discern the difference of when it's a chemistry connection versus when it's compatibility? So like would that be like what would that look like for
So
someone
for
who's trying to understand
me,
the difference?
oh, the difference. So for me, I was working on being in my feminine receptive mode basically and not chasing men. So I would allow them to initiate a text or call or hanging out with me.
Mhm.
And what I wanted was somebody that wanted a real connection. So if they weren't going to call me, then I wasn't going to continue conversing with them. Like if they were just going to text, and then I was like, I would just send them my number and be like, hey, just give me a call and we can talk sometime. And if they didn't call, then that was them self-selecting out.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
so I've also had times where I had like a good conversation on the phone with somebody, but then they might not have reached out after that. And I didn't think too deep into it like I might have done in the past. And I just was like, oh, it's, they're self-selecting out as well. So the
I
next,
see.
and the more that I wasn't thinking about, thinking about these situations in a negative way, and I was thinking of more positive, like every time I had like a connection with somebody and they didn't reach out again, or maybe they didn't reach out the way that I wanted it to be, I just was like, well, if it's not them, it's somebody better. And
Gotcha.
so I've had better and better connections since in doing that. But I do believe that when it comes to compatibility, we have to be aligned on a lot of different levels, like being able to have calm conversations. How do they react under pressure? And stuff like that. So those are things I start to look at now that I'm like even deeper in.
Okay, got you. So is that kind of where the curiosity lies? So like if you were to like talking about compatibility versus chemistry, when you set a boundary, that's kind of when you can separate the differences, right? Like, hey, I can't text right now. I'd rather do a phone call later.
Yeah.
And then assuming that person like communicates either they can or they can't effectively and calmly, that would be the
Mhm.
compatibility part versus if they're like, well, no, I'm just gonna text you. Um,
Yeah.
that would be like a chemistry thing. Is that kind of what?
So I think chemistry can be like that in the moment, feel good feeling if you're talking to somebody, like, oh, we can have a good conversation, or we can feel good together in the moment. But then for me, compatibility is like you start to see how they actually react to things and how they move when it comes to certain things. Like you always want to test also to see how they react to you changing your plans. Um, because both sides shouldn't be overreacting if somebody's changing plans. But then you also should be, a responsible person. There's like a balance.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, hey, I have to pick up the kid.
Yeah.
XYZ happen. That takes precedence versus like I just feel like staying home tonight.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Got you. All right, cool. Yeah, that provides more clarity. Could you go more into depth on like empathizing with someone's wounds? Like essentially that's trauma bonding.
Yeah, it's a form of trauma bonding. Because I used to do that a lot, where a lot of the guys I met had childhood wounds just like I did, and we'd be able to relate off of that. And I'd empathize with it, but I didn't realize it was something that, you know, that I should not necessarily, you know, want to connect with. But it's unhealthy. It's most of the time when we're just staying because we empathize with somebody's wounds, they might continue in their wounded era for who knows how long. So you're basically abandoning yourself by staying in a dynamic, and you're not able to grow out of that dynamic type of thing.
Got you. So if both parties overgrow it, then I guess like what would that look like? Like how would that be different if like you had
I feel like most of the time one person is growing while the other person isn't, and that's why it ends up being like, okay, let me leave this situation because I'm trying to grow and you're staying at this level. And so whether it's a male or female dynamic, I feel like one person, people leave because they end up growing out of that dynamic. And to me, the perfect relationship is both people being in the growth mindset and able to take full responsibility for their own wounds and their own triggers. And so I'm to the point now where I actually can take full responsibility for my own triggers and my own wounds. And I'm like, okay, that's my fault for, you know, allowing this or allowing that. So let me step back and put this boundary in. But that's where you start to see people's true colors, if they're in their wounds or not. If they're in their wound, they're going to react defensively, start labeling, start, you know.
Yeah. So is that like where the curiosity lies? Like if you set a boundary, because you said when you set a boundary, you want someone to be curious. So is it like, is the curiosity essentially like them trying to understand you on a deeper level and like where it comes from and like trying to understand? Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually healthy when you set a boundary for somebody and they actually have the curiosity to understand you better, then that is a healthy place that they're coming from. But if they automatically just get defensive, that's coming from a wound.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And then so how would you, I mean, and this might be like a big answer, but like, so when you're trying to like find your own wounds, are you essentially kind of seeing like what your own triggers are whenever someone places a boundary? Like with you, for instance, right? If I were to place a boundary, like in this discussion for some reason, and then would it be like you would get triggered and you're like, oh, that's a wound? Or how would people go about understanding their wounds and then going about trying to, I don't know if fixing is the right word, but yeah, moving forward.
Yeah, you did say it correctly. Is like if somebody triggers me because they set a boundary, I have to look at that trigger within myself. Like, why did that upset me? And figure out, because so what happened was this person set a boundary with me, and maybe in the past it was something I would have been triggered by, but I actually didn't get upset about it. I respected the boundary, and I was like, oh, I understand why you would set that boundary now, and so here's my boundary. Like I realized that I was telling too much way too soon anyway, and that should have only been saved for a dynamic once we were actually established in a relationship. And so here's my boundary. So, but then they overreacted completely, you know, off the wall because of my boundary. So I was just like, okay, yeah, this is not gonna work.
Right.
So,
Gotcha. And
but when somebody sets a boundary with me and I get triggered, that is something that I look at in myself. Like, why did I get triggered by that?
and so then how do you go about like pinpointing, like what questions do you ask yourself to where you can, I don't know if that's getting too deep right now, but
yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is good. Because it is about asking ourselves the right questions, because we always have access to the answers. We just have to ask ourselves the right questions. Because it's like whatever we put into the quantum field will come back to us if we're regulated in a calm state, and we just ask like, okay, I just felt this trigger. What is that coming from? And the answer comes. Surprisingly enough, once you start asking yourself the questions, the answers come either, you know, everybody has, you know, a certain level of spiritual gifts where they can see things visually, or they can hear things, or they can, or it just comes into their mind type of thing, because we're literally broadcasting. We're broadcasting and we're also receiving information all the time, just like a radio receiver. Like our brains are doing that. And so when we're actually able to have a regulated nervous system and stay calm, we can ask ourselves the questions and get the answers. So so it's like, where is this trigger coming from? Okay, now I can start to make different choices in my own, the way I move, in order to attract healthier and healthier relationships.
Okay. Sorry, I'm writing that down. So when you ask that question, right? Like, okay, where does this trigger come from? Like you get an answer and it could be like, oh, from, you know, this
Yeah.
event that happened this day. So then how do you go about, like, do you just kind of like say like, all right, that's it? Or yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, how
So
do
there's
you
usually like a reframe that comes
Okay.
with it. Like I've learned that emotional intelligence is like dialoguing with your emotions as well. And
Okay.
so I'll actually speak with my own emotions, like if I'm feeling lonely, and that's usually where it was like looking for people to like text you or call you or do and that's the thing too. It's like, yeah, I want somebody to be able to call me, but they don't have to be calling me too much, if that makes sense. Because if you're calling somebody too much, that's coming from a wound. But if I'm allowing them to pursue me and they make the call and it's a good conversation, and you know, they ask to take me out on a date, then we have fun on the date, and it moves from there. It's like, that's when I'm able to start to get to know a person over time. And it's healthy to let the time pass to be able to even recalibrate your own nervous system. So that's why when people kind of like get together too fast, they're actually like merging nervous systems before even knowing if it's safe.
Gotcha. Okay. Compatible. Going back to the
Yeah,
compatibility.
compatible.
Got you. Okay, cool. Yeah, that provided more clarity. Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
That was cool. So we had some questions today. And I'm going to end that there for tonight. So basically, if this resonated, save it, share it with somebody that's learning secure love. And I will be back. You know, I'm back every Friday. So if you guys want to join in, you can join in on the StreamYard link, just like Savannah did, and ask questions at the end. Or you can just ask questions in the comment. It's up to you. But I'm going to end that there for today. So you guys have a great rest of your day.